Hello, it's time for another episode of Discipleship today. My name is Pastor Bob Benson. I pastor Christ Lutheran Church out in Greenhurst, New York. We've been using the book of John as this discipleship text because of the special relationship that the youngest disciple, we believe that John was the youngest disciple, had with Jesus. Matter of fact, at the Last Supper, it was John that leaned back against Jesus, against his breast. And so out of that special relationship, John records a lot of things that the other gospel, the synoptic gospel writers did not record. About 80% of what you're going to see in the book of John is unique to the book of John. We've been in chapter 18. I'm going to read the next section, which is verses 28 through 32, a short section of scripture, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. Then they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. It was early morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters, so they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. So Pilate went outside to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered him, "If this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourself and judge him by your own law." The Jews said to him, "It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken, to show by what kind of death he was going to die. Here we have this glimpse into these early morning trials, which in Jewish culture were against the law. It would have been against the law to hold any trial before the dawn of the morning and after dark. If these trials were conducted at night, which it says it clearly that they were all illegal. They were all against the law of the Jews. But they said it isn't lawful for us to put anyone to death. So they brought him to the Romans. They were trying to get around the law in any way. And they said it wasn't lawful. They wanted Pilate to pronounce a pronouncement of death against this Jewish ruler, this Jewish leader. They were calling him an insurrectionist, and I think it's interesting. They didn't want to be defiled by the ceremonial law, so they wouldn't even go into the house. But they made the leader come out to them. And what accusation do you bring against this man? And I don't think they even had thought that far ahead, because if this man were not doing evil, we would have not delivered him over to you. They didn't even know what they were going to accuse him of at this point. And talk about rushing around in the dark, trying to do dark things. And I think that's what was going on here. So for discipleship, we want to try and do everything above board, everything the right way. We don't want to skirt the law. We don't want to get around the law. But we do want to have a heart that wants to follow the law as much as we can, unless it goes against God's law. And that's what we're looking at. We want to be salt and light in the world today, and how do we do that? And I think we can do that when we try and work within the law and just try and be more loving to people. And that's really tough, especially in our culture today, because there are so many things that we disagree with that are going on. There are so many things that we disagree with, even in the political scheme of things. But we always have to do the right thing. We have to do what ought to be done, not what is done. And there's a huge difference between ethics and morals. Morals are what happen when 51% of the population say that this is right. That becomes the law of the land, and that becomes the morals of a culture. The problem is that we're held to a different standard. As followers of Jesus Christ, we're held to the ought. This is what ought to be as far as God's standard. And we have to keep that in the back of our minds. What ought to happen? What is the best to happen in God's eyes? Because God is the judge of everything. These Jewish leaders were not the judge of everything. They sat in that place and they judged incorrectly. So let's try and judge correctly. Let's try and judge in what ought to be done. So for discipleship today, my name is Pastor Bob Benson. Thank you.